Two things happened before I could breathe. First, my dead daughter's number lit my phone at 3:04 a.m. Second, a photo of the bridge where she died arrived from an unknown sender. The third thing did not happen. I did not wake from a bad dream. I was awake, sitting in bed, watching the name I had not seen in 15 years flash across a screen. The call cut before I touched it. I stared, hands cold, waiting for it to ring again. If this is your first time here, stay with me. We tell true stories with names changed. Want more? Subscribe. Comment your city so I know where you listen from. Now, back to that night. My name is Clara Dawson. I run a small floral shop on Main Street in Maple Ridge. I am the kind of person who makes cheerful window displays and keeps the back room tidy. People say I seem calm. I learned to look that way after the worst night of my life. 15 years earlier, the police called just after midnight. Rain beat the roof like gravel. A tired voice said my daughter, Lila, had been in a wreck near the old bridge. He asked me to come to the hospital. He did not say much else. I knew enough. Every detail from that night glued itself to my mind. The glare of ER lights. The plastic chair that wouldn't stop squeaking. Mark, my husband then, walking toward me with a face I did not recognize. The doctor with the gentle eyes. A shake of the head. A form to sign. We buried her on a Tuesday. The town sent casseroles I never ate. Friends called. A pastor prayed. People said I was strong. I was empty. Mark moved through the house like a stranger. We tried to last. We did not. He left for Oregon after 2 years. I kept the house and the shop. I kept quiet. I also kept Lila's number in my contacts. I do not know why. Maybe a name in your phone feels like a door. You never expect it to open. Maple Ridge is the kind of suburb where sprinklers tick at dusk and cars crawl past neat lawns. I walked the same loop each morning with coffee and a leash for the neighbor's aging beagle. I put roses in a window vase at the shop and wrote notes for customers who did not know what to say. Grief can learn chores. It learns to stalk ribbon and sweep stem ends from a floor. It never learns to leave. On the 15th August after the crash, I fell asleep early with the TV whispering. The house held the gentle sounds it always held. The fridge hummed. The old furnace clicked. Somewhere outside, a train spoke to itself. A small change in the air woke me. My phone glowed on the nightstand. Lila calling. I did not touch it. My mind tried to build a rational box around the site. Carriers recycle numbers. Spoofers steal identities. Maybe some kid had the number now. Maybe my contact label stuck to a stranger's call. The ring ended. The room felt different, the way a room feels after someone leaves. I sat up. My chest pushed against my ribs. The screen darkened, then lit again. A message arrived from an unknown number. It was a blurry photo. Rain on metal. Red lights reflected in water. The guardrail bent like a broken arm. I knew the place without reading the tiny green sign in the corner. It was the bridge. The one I avoid on my drives. The one where a trooper had found a car half buried in weeds and glass. I went cold all over. The clock read 3:05. I tried to call the number back. It failed. I tried again. Same result. I took a screenshot of the call log. My hand shook. I walked down the hall to the room we had not changed since the funeral. Her jacket hung on the chair. That blue notebook sat under the lamp. I turned the pages without reading. A pressed ticket fell out. I put it back. Part of me wanted to run to the bridge. Another part remembered how bodies break when cars spin. Memory is a stern parent. It makes you sit. So I sat on the edge of the bed and watched the black window. I waited. Nothing moved except the tiny red dot on the smoke alarm. The house returned to normal. The fridge hummed. The furnace clicked. I stared at the ceiling until the line between night and morning thinned. If you are still with me, tell me your city in the comments. I read every one. Stories like this help us learn. Some of you have a name like mine saved in your phone. Some of you keep a room that never changes. Do not look away. Not yet. By 7, I had made coffee I did not drink. I opened the shop. I tied ribbon on lilies and nodded at customers. I told no one. I told myself it was a glitch. People in pain accept clean answers. By closing time, I had built a stack of clean answers. Then I walked home and set my phone on the table like it might burn me. That evening I ate toast over the sink and let the news play without sound. I folded dish towels that did not need folding. I checked the lock on the back door twice. Habit is a shelter when answers are thin. I kept the phone face down on the table and still watched it like it might glow through wood. Around midnight I walked the hallway. I stood in her doorway and traced the edge of that blue notebook with one finger. I sat on the floor and breathed until my shoulders loosened. I told the room I was not ready to believe in signs. I also told the room I would listen if she needed me. I went back to bed and turned every sound off. The house settled. The fridge hummed. A train far away gave one low call. I watched the red dot on the smoke alarm mark time. My eyes slid closed. At 3:04, the phone lit again. I answered on the first ring. Hello? Static lifted, then cleared. Mom. The word was soft and scared. My throat tightened. Hearing it at 3:04 a.m. felt like stepping off a curb I didn't see. Lila? A pause, then close to the mic. I don't have much time. Where am I? I sat up. Tell me what you see. It's dark, she whispered. I can't see. I'm cold. Please. A hard click cut the line. Silence returned like a shut door. I called back. An automated voice said the number was not in service. I called again and again. Same response. If you are new here, stay with me. Subscribe so you don't miss what follows. Tell me your city in the comments. What would you say if your child spoke from a number that should not exist? I called the carrier. Piano music filled my ear. When a woman answered, I gave the number. She checked, then said, that line has been disconnected since 2009. I asked if someone could reuse it. No, she said. It's retired. I asked where the call came from. She could not say. She opened a ticket and promised an email. Her voice was kind. It did not help. I stood at the counter counting the blue tiles to steady my breathing. 20 across. 11 down. My hands would not stop shaking, so I gripped the sink until the chill of the steel bit my palms. The kitchen clock read 3:27. I wrote the time on a sticky note and pressed it to the fridge. If this kept going, I would build a record. Dates, times, every detail. Pain can lie. Paper doesn't. Not this time, ever. I walked to Lila's room and turned on the light. Dust lifted and floated. I sat on the floor with her blue notebook open on my lap. Slanted print. Dark loops on the Ys. A small sketch of a bridge in the margin I had never seen. The sight made my stomach drop. I set the notebook aside and opened the keepsake box. A bracelet with a missing clasp. The silver charm from Mark's keys. A paper crane. I lined them up like I was taking stock of what was left. I heard you, I said to the quiet. I'm here. My phone buzzed on the carpet. I turned it over. A new text from an unknown number filled the screen. Mom, don't tell anyone yet. Please. I read it 10 times. I checked the number. No name. No history. Just a single line on a bright screen. Every rule grief had taught me told me not to trust it. Every rule love had taught me told me to answer. I typed, then erased, then typed again. Who is this? No reply. I waited a minute, then 5. I tried again. If this is my girl, tell me something only we know. The 3 dots never showed. The screen stayed flat and mean. Anger cut through the haze. If someone was playing with me, I would find them. If a system had glitched, I would learn how. I took photos of the call log and the text. I saved them in a folder titled August 12th and emailed copies to myself. I pulled the curtains open. Night crouched on the lawn. The porch light made a small circle on the street. A car hissed past a few blocks away. The town slept the way it always sleeps. Ordinary. Unaware. I put the keepsakes back in their box and slid the notebook under the lamp. I sat on the edge of her bed and told myself to wait for daylight. If you are watching this alone, you are not alone. Type stay so I can find you later. Tell me what you'd do next. Call the police? Call a friend? Sit in the doorway like I did and watch a silent phone? At 6, I showered and dressed. I opened the shop at 8 and arranged sunflowers. Customers came and went with morning faces. I packed 2 orders and stared at the receipt printer like it could answer questions. Near noon, Mark called about a bill. I told him nothing. After the crash, we had become 2 different people in one house. Today, we were 2 different people on a thin wire. My assistant, Marcy, walked in and tied on her apron. You look pale, she said. Didn't sleep, I said. That was true. I did not say that I had heard our daughter ask where she was. I did not say I had a text I could not explain. At 5, I locked up and walked home slow. I did not check my phone on the way. I feared both answers, more silence or more contact. On the porch, I stood a long time with the key in my hand. Inside, I set the phone on the table and waited for dark. I told myself I would not answer if it rang. At 3:02, a new message arrived, a blurred photo of wet metal and red lights. I called the non-emergency line at dawn and asked for a detective. When Aaron McClure returned my call, his voice was steady and careful. I told him everything from the 3:04 ring to the new photo at 3:02. He asked me to bring my phone. At the station he wore a plain suit and a wedding ring with a scrape across the band. He listened without interrupting, then set my phone on a clean pad and photographed the log and images. We'll pull your carrier records, he said. If this is spoofing, there will be a trail. I heard her, I said. She asked where she was. I understand that's what you heard, he answered. If this is a joke, I'll press charges. We'll find out what it is, he said. Do not answer if it rings again. Save everything. If you get more messages, don't reply. He slid a card across the table and wrote his cell on the back. In the parking lot, I sat with both hands on the wheel. The photo filled my screen again. Rain beating on bent rail. Red reflected in black water. The tiny green sign in the corner showed the road name I avoid saying out loud. If you're listening, tell me your city in the comments. Would you keep this quiet or call a detective like I did? And if you haven't yet, subscribe so you don't miss what the records revealed next. Back at the shop, I tied ribbon and swept stems and watched the door each time the bell chimed. Near noon, my phone rang. Mark's name flashed. I let it go to voicemail, then picked up on the second try. You sound tired, he said. Everything okay? Not really. What happened? I told him about the calls and the photo. He was silent a breath too long. Clara, you can't do this again, he said. We have to accept what happened. I am accepting it. But this happened too. Phones glitch. People fake things. Don't build an altar to a wrong number. Someone sent me a photo from the bridge at 3 in the morning. Then someone is cruel, he said. Block the number. Get some sleep. What if it was her voice? That isn't possible, he said, and the way he said it closed the old door between us. He changed the subject to a bill. I told him I had to go. I packed orders until my fingers ached. Marcy watched me like she wanted to ask but knew better. When the last customer left, I locked the door and leaned my head on the cool glass. Outside, a blue sedan crawled past. Life moved the way it always does. Near dusk, McClure called. "We have your initial record," he said. "Your carrier shows an incoming number that doesn't map to a live account. The route path is odd. It bounced through an old relay that's supposed to be offline." "What does that mean?" "It means we can't explain it yet." I requested a deeper trace. "For now, don't answer unknown calls or texts. Keep your phone on you." "Do you believe me?" "I believe you received something you can't explain," he said. "That's enough to keep going." That night, I set my phone on the dresser and sat on the floor of Lila's room. I opened the blue notebook and traced a doodle of a small bridge in the margin. I tried to remember her face the last time she left the house. Ponytail. Rain slicker. That grin she wore when she had a plan. At 2:58, I moved to the living room and turned off every light. The phone stayed dark. At 3:01 a.m. new image slid into the thread. Same scene, pulled whiter. Strobes washed the road in red and white. A line like a tow cable cut across the frame. I sent the photo to McClure with one line. It came again. He replied in under a minute, "Do not reply. I'm on my way." I watched the street until his knock. He zoomed on the corner and read the stamp. "Same place," he said. "Different angle." "Who sent it?" "Whoever wants you looking at that bridge at 3 in the morning, he said. "And whoever knows you will." He left to file a tech request. I sat at the table with my phone like a lit candle. At 3:19 the screen buzzed one more time. A single line appeared under the photos. "Please don't tell anyone yet." I didn't reply. I saved and timestamped everything and emailed backups to myself. If this story finds you at night, keep listening. We'll get through it together. Stay close. If you're still here, type listening. And subscribe for the next part. The next part sent me back to the place I swore I would never stand again. By late afternoon the next day, I drove toward the road I had avoided for years. The sky hung low and gray. I told myself I was only going to look, to prove the photos were old. The closer I came, the more my hands sweat on the wheel. The bridge came into view with its new rail and fresh stripes over dark water. The old damage was gone, but the slope and curve were the same. I pulled onto the gravel shoulder and cut the engine. If you are with me, breathe. Tell me your city below. Subscribe if you want the next turn. Comment what you check first. I walked to where the guardrail meets the first post. The air held the smell of wet metal and wild onion. I scanned the gravel for anything that did not belong. 10 paces down, something small caught the light. I brushed away grit. A heart-shaped charm lay half-buried, its metal dulled with rust. I knew it before my fingers closed around it. I had bought it for Lila's keys on her 16th birthday. She said it was corny and clipped it on anyway. I stood with the charm in my palm, breath thin. 15 years of rain should have eaten through that thin metal. This one looked tired, but not ancient. I took a photo of it in my hand and another of the spot where I found it. A car slowed as it passed. I wrapped the charm in a tissue. I sent the photos to McClure with a pin of my location and called him. He picked up on the second ring. "Don't move," he said. "I'm on my way." While I waited, I walked the brush in a careful grid. A torn ribbon flapped on a twig. A flattened can hid under gravel. Nothing else. McClure parked behind me and stepped out with gloves and a small evidence bag. He photographed the charm in my hand, in the tissue, and in the dirt where I had found it. He sealed it and labeled it. "We'll test exposure," he said. "If it's been here since the crash, it'll show." "It's hers," I said. He glanced along the shoulder. "Did you see anyone?" A car slowed. "That's all." He looked at the new rail. This span got rebuilt. But whoever sent those photos wants you thinking about the old one. He scanned the gravel with a small flashlight. Meet me at the station tomorrow. I drove home with both hands tight on the wheel. The house felt colder than usual. I sat at the table with my phone, watching the thread of images and the single line below them. Please don't tell anyone yet. If you are still here, type here. It helps me see you. I am here with you tonight. Stay near. No call came that night. The silence pressed. At dawn, I drove to the station. McClure met me with a printout and a small evidence bag in a tray. The lab ran a quick test, he said. This charm has been outside, but not for long. The corrosion is shallow. Days, not years. My stomach turned. Then someone put it there. That's our read, he said. You're sure it's hers? I bought it. He nodded. We'll compare the scratch pattern to your old photos. For now, assume someone placed it to pull you here. To what end? I asked. Usually attention. Sometimes control. Did you show anyone else the messages? No, I paused. Mark knows about the call. He doesn't believe it. Keep your circle small, he said. If another item appears, don't touch it. Call me first. I left with the report, feeling the floor tilt a degree. Back at the shop, I tried to arrange tulips into neat fans and failed twice. Marcy moved around me in quiet loops. When a couple asked for sympathy flowers, I wrote the card slow and neat. I locked up, drove home, and set my phone face up on the table. I told myself I would not sit waiting. I sat anyway. At 9:12, a new image arrived without a sound. The same bridge, closer, tilted low. The charm was not in the frame. A faint smear on the rail caught the light. I texted McClure the photo. He called at once. We're pulling traffic cam footage, he said. If someone stood there tonight, we'll see them. I asked the question I didn't want to ask. Could this be someone I know? It could be someone who studied you, he said. That's closer than a stranger. I set the phone down and watched the window turn to dark glass. The house felt like a held breath. Morning brought a quiet house and the sense that something had shifted. I made coffee I didn't drink and scrolled the thread again. 2 calls, 3 images, 1 line asking for secrecy, and a charm that looked too new. I opened a folder marked school. Report cards, slips. I was done being passive. At 8:13 a.m. new message arrived. No contact name. Just a sentence. He wasn't who you thought. I stared. I typed, who are you? No answer. I typed, who wasn't who I thought. Silence. I pulled out third quarter grades. Physics at the top. The teacher's name hit hard. Mr. Peterson. Beside his signature he had written, shows promise with structural concepts. If you're watching, tell me your city. Subscribe if you need to know how this played out, because the next move was not mine. A new photo slid into the thread. The same corner of the bridge, camera pointed low. In the bottom left, a scrap of paper lay half hidden by a stone. A line of print ran across the scrap. Physics department. I called McClure. This is about her teacher, I said. Peterson? He asked. Yes. Stay home, he said. I'll come by. He arrived with a slim laptop and a calm look. He showed me a route map that bent where it should not. The route is wrong, he said. It bounced through a dead relay. There's something else. Peterson left the job years ago. He was under quiet review for boundary concerns. Nothing proved. He moved. No forwarding address. Concerns with students? I asked. We're checking. Where did he go? Unknown, he said. He kept a P.O. box, closed 2 years after the crash. I handed him the report card. Did she mention him? She said his class was hard and fair, I said. He came to the funeral. I want to look at his last listed address, he said. Do not go there alone. I nodded. Then I went anyway. The house sat at the end of a quiet street under old maples. The lawn had gone to seed. A free newspaper lay sunbleached on the porch. I knocked. No answer. I cupped my hands to the side window and looked in. A corkboard covered the office wall, stacked with clippings from the weeks after the crash. Photos of the bridge, the rain, the bent rail, and my face near a casket. Strings ran between the clippings. A photo of Lila at a science fair sat near the middle beside another girl I didn't know. An index card under it read, Bridge Project. I tried the back door. It opened on a kitchen that smelled like dust. On the table, a small tape recorder lay beside cassettes with dates written in thin block letters. Clara. I turned. McClure stood in the doorway, jaw tight. I told you not to come alone. I couldn't wait, I said. Look at this. I pointed at the board and the recorder. He moved through the rooms, eyes scanning. He photographed the clippings and the strings, then lifted the recorder and read the date on the top tape. August 2008. He pressed play. Hiss, then laughter. Lila. Stop recording, she said, teasing. Tires screeched. The tape clicked off. I gripped the counter. How did he have that? He followed her route, McClure said. Maybe he recorded his drives. Maybe more. He looked at the board again. I need a warrant for the rest. We stepped outside to the quiet yard. McClure made a call from the curb. I stood by the maples and tried to breathe around the tight band in my chest. His phone clicked back into his pocket. We're securing the scene, he said. One more thing. We've been trying to find him. And? He's missing, McClure said. Neighbors haven't seen him in 2 weeks. I stared at the silent house. The porch newspaper lifted at one corner and fluttered. I thought of the line in my phone, he wasn't who you thought. Whoever sent it wasn't wrong. Back home, I set the recorder sound next to the 3 a.m. calls in my mind. 2 sets of hands had held machines around my child. One at a kitchen table. One in the dark by a river. At 3:02 a.m. new image arrived. Not metal. A man's shoulder in a car window. The angle was low, like a hidden camera. The mirror showed a slice of a face. Enough to suggest. Not enough to confirm. Same road name. Same spot. I sent it to McClure. He called at once. Do not share this with anyone, he said. We're pulling traffic cams and nearby doorbells. Is it him? I asked. It could be, he said. Or someone who wants us to think it is. If you're still here, type still. And subscribe if you want the next reveal. Because the next reveal does not arrive softly. It arrives as a voice, and it does not sound alone. Now. The tape played again in my head all day. Lila's laughter, the tire screech, the silence. McClure had taken it to evidence, but the sound wouldn't leave me. I heard it under the hum of the cooler at the shop, between the buzz of shears cutting stems. It felt alive, like it was waiting for something. At dusk, McClure called. We digitized the tape, he said. You need to hear this yourself. He met me at the station, the small player hooked to a monitor. The audio began the same way, Lila's laugh, shy and bright. Then her voice changed. Mr. Peterson, is it on? Yes, he said. His voice, low, calm, filled the room. Why are you recording? This isn't part of the project, she said. Sound captures more than you think, Lila. It holds what the eyes miss. The laugh returned, nervous this time. Then screeching tires. The crash. Silence. When the clip ended, McClure froze the waveform on screen. He recorded her right before the wreck. I whispered. She was with him? We don't know. The recording could have been made earlier that day. But that's his voice. He nodded. The same cadence. The same breath pattern. I had audio from a faculty interview to compare. I leaned back in the chair, the air thick around me. He followed her. Maybe, McClure said. Or maybe he kept her voice for something else. If he had this, I said, then he knew more than anyone about what really happened that night. He closed the file. We'll check every recording in his house. I'll need you to look through anything she left that might connect to him. The words hit like a command. Back home, I dug through old school papers, certificates, field trip forms. I found nothing strange, until the last folder. At the bottom, taped to a pink post-it, was a message in my daughter's handwriting. Mr. P says memory isn't just in our heads. I sat staring at that note for a long time. The thought of him telling her that, before she died, made my skin crawl. If you're watching, stay with me. Subscribe so you won't miss what comes next. Comment your city. I want to know where this story is reaching. Because tonight, I learned something that made my blood run cold. McClure called again near midnight. One more thing, he said. There's a second voice buried under the static on the tape. We're cleaning it up. Whose voice? We don't know yet. But it's young, female. The line hummed between us. Another student? I asked. Could be. We'll know soon. That night, I slept on the couch with the lights on. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed once, then stopped. No text. No call. Just a single notification, unknown audio file saved to device. I opened it. The file name, Lila_002.mp3. I pressed play. A whisper. Then her voice. Mom, don't let him take the other one. The file ended at 6 seconds. Morning sunlight hit the window hard, but I didn't move. I replayed the 6-second file until it felt carved into me. Don't let him take the other one. At 9, I drove straight to the station. McClure met me with dark circles under his eyes. I played the message for him. He looked at the timestamp. This was created last night? 3 a.m. He nodded slowly. Clara, that matches the time the relay tower log spiked again. It pinged your area. So it's still running? Yes, but listen. That second voice from the tape? We matched the vocal pattern. It belongs to another girl. Tessa Crowley. The name meant nothing at first. Then a flash, Lila mentioning a lab partner once, a girl who liked to hum during work. She was in the same class, I said. She was, McClure said. She transferred schools right after the crash. I checked her file. She hasn't spoken about it since. Do you think she knows something? Maybe she saw something. I went home and pulled every box from Lila's closet. I wanted to find this girl's face. Old notebooks, project folders, a half-finished scrapbook. Nothing. Then, at the very bottom, I found a sealed envelope with physics fair written on the front. Inside were photos. Lila and another girl, both grinning behind a model bridge made of thin steel rods and copper wire. The label at the bottom read, Bridge Project, Peterson's class. The bridge. The same pattern. The same curve that killed her. I sent a picture of the photo to McClure. He called back in seconds. That's Tessa, he said. And that bridge model? It matches the structure of the one that collapsed. He built the same design twice, I whispered. Maybe he used the class as a test. Test for what? I don't know yet, he said. But it looks like your daughter and Tessa built the prototype. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in Lila's room, turning the photo over and over. On the back, written faintly in pencil, he says we can make things talk. At 3:01 a.m., my phone lit again. No number. Just text. Ask him about the other girl. I typed one word back. Who? No reply. If you're still watching, tell me in the comments, what would you do if your child's voice warned you 15 years after her death? Stay with me. The next message showed me how deep this went, and who else had been listening all along. The next morning, McClure stopped by with a cup of black coffee and a folder. We found a new clue, he said. Tessa dropped out of sight after the funeral. She moved 3 towns over, changed her name, never finished college. She's hiding, I said. We're afraid, he replied. But we have something else. He handed me the folder. Inside was a still image from the video we had just pulled off the flash drive he found in Peterson's desk. The frame showed Lila and Tessa in a classroom. On the table between them was the same small bridge, only this time wires led from the frame into a set of audio meters. Peterson's hand held a microphone. The title scrawled on the bottom, Experiment 12. He pressed play on the laptop. The girls laughed as they adjusted the wires. Lila said, "It's humming, can you hear it?" Peterson's voice answered, "That's not sound, it's resonance. Everything keeps a memory of what touches it." Then static. Then silence. McClure paused the video and zoomed in. See that arch? That's the same pattern as the accident bridge. Look at the stress lines, they're identical. So he built his research around their school project, I said. He used them. Looks that way. I watched the frozen frame of my daughter's face. She looked proud. Happy. I wanted to reach through the screen and tell her to stop smiling, to run. What was he testing? I asked. McClure scrolled through the metadata. The file references something called EM12, emotional memory resonance. My guess? He thought emotions could leave a frequency imprint on metal. Maybe he was using the bridge as a conductor. He turned a science fair into a grave, I said. McClure didn't argue. He shut the laptop and said quietly, "This goes deeper than we thought. We'll find Tessa." I nodded but said nothing. That night, I replayed the Experiment 12 clip over and over. When the static hit, I turned the volume up. Beneath it, faint and quick, was a whisper. A man's voice, "Keep the recording steady." Then a girl's, "She's not supposed to be here." The timestamp on the video? August 11, 2008, the night before the crash. If you've been watching from the start, you know by now this story isn't only about a mother and her loss. It's about what people hide behind research and grief. Comment "I'm still here" if you want the truth. Because what came next proved the experiment hadn't ended with them. It had just been waiting for someone to listen again. McClure's text came at dawn, "We found her. She'll talk, but only to you." By the time I met him at the Maple Ridge station, he had coffee in one hand and a look that said this was bigger than either of us imagined. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a driver's license photo under a different name, but the eyes were the same as in the science fair picture, Tessa Crowley, now Teresa Crane. She's in Wisconsin. Works at a roadside diner off Route 91. Agreed to one meeting. Says she won't talk to the police, McClure said. Why me? He looked at me over the rim of his cup. Because you're the only one who's gotten the same kind of call. If you're listening, don't go anywhere. Subscribe before the next part, because this is where it stops being theory and starts being survival. Now back to it. The diner sat by an empty stretch of highway, half hidden behind a gas station sign. The air smelled of burnt coffee and rain. I slid into a booth facing the door. Tessa entered 10 minutes later wearing sunglasses though it was cloudy. She kept her purse close like she might run any second. Tessa, I said quietly. She flinched. I told him I didn't want cops. I'm not here for them, I said. I just want the truth. She looked around before speaking. Peterson ruined everything. Tell me what he was doing. She rubbed her temples. He said sound was memory. That emotion leaves traces, like fingerprints in air. He wanted to catch them, what he called resonance ghosts. He built devices to record frequencies from places tied to trauma. I leaned forward. Like the bridge. She nodded. He made us run tests. Said we were building a teaching model. But the bridge design we used, it wasn't random. It was based on his own measurements from that road. He'd go there at night, record echoes from cars, from the river, from storms. He said water amplifies grief. Did Lila know? She started to suspect. She told me she thought he was following her. That he'd been outside her house one night taking photos. Tessa's eyes filled. I told her to tell her mom. She said you already had enough to worry about. My throat closed. He followed her the night she died, didn't he? Tessa didn't answer right away. He called me that night. Said he was testing the resonance window, between 3 o'clock and 3:15 a.m., said I'd hear something special if I kept my phone close. She swallowed hard. I heard her voice, Clara. Lila's voice. Crying. Asking for help. The diner noise faded behind her words. My pulse thudded loud enough to hear. You got a call too? She nodded. At 3:10 that night. It wasn't a recording. It was live. I heard wind, the crash, metal twisting. Then Peterson's voice whispering, perfect frequency capture. I gripped the edge of the table. He killed her. Her tears came fast. I don't know if he meant to. But he didn't stop it either. When I confronted him later, he said, sacrifice makes proof. That's when I left town. Why didn't you go to the police? I tried, she said. They said it was an accident. Then I started getting calls again, same time, same voice. Peterson told me if I talked, the voices would never stop. Did they stop? She gave a bitter smile. Not really. I just learned to turn my phone off at night. I leaned closer. He's gone, Tessa. Whatever power he thought he had, it's done. She shook her head. You don't get it. He built something that doesn't need him anymore. The signal's still alive. He said emotional pain amplifies it. The more you mourn, the stronger it gets. What kind of signal? Her hand trembled as she sipped coffee. He said grief is energy. He found a way to bounce it back. I pressed record on my phone without thinking. Tessa, what's experiment 12? She hesitated. It was supposed to prove sound can live after death. That emotion can echo. He called it the echo field. But we never finished it. After Lila's death, he said the data was complete. She slid a napkin across the table. On it, she had scribbled coordinates. That's where his old storage unit was. If it's still active, you'll find everything there. Come with me. She shook her head. I've spent 15 years trying to disappear. Don't bring this back to life. When I stepped outside, the air had shifted. McClure waited by the car. Well, he asked. I handed him the napkin. She confirmed he followed Lila that night. She says he captured her death. McClure's jaw tightened. Then we'll confirm it too. As we drove away, I looked back at the diner. Tessa stood by the door watching us, one hand over her chest as if to steady something broken inside her. I didn't sleep that night. The idea that sound could outlive the body played over in my head. I kept hearing Tessa's voice saying, he found a way to bounce grief back. By morning, I knew where to go next, the high school archives. The building hadn't changed much. The same dull lockers, same echo of teenage noise down empty halls. The secretary remembered me and gave me access to the old storage room. Dust and silence met me like old friends. I opened box after box labeled Physics Department, 2008. Most were filled with student projects, broken circuits, faded notes. Near the bottom, a leather-bound journal rested inside a sealed plastic bag labeled Property of A. Peterson. My pulse quickened. I set it on the table and turned the first page. Every line was written in tiny, precise handwriting. Equations ran down the margins. But what chilled me wasn't the math, it was the words between them. Emotion generates measurable frequency. Memory remains active within 72 hours post-event. Sound is not gone, it is displaced. I turned another page. Test subjects LD and TC display strong emotional waveforms. Parental attachment enhances resonance stability. Prediction: maternal grief sustains echo field beyond death. The next page stopped me cold. Test successful. Time window confirmed, 3 to 3:15 a.m. signal persistence high. Primary host, mother. I read it again. The mother sustains the link. The air in the room thickened. Every 3 a.m. call, every whisper, every photo, it wasn't random. It was tethered to me. My pain was the power source. If you're still listening, don't scroll away. Type still here. Because the next part isn't science fiction. It's grief turned into a machine. I snapped pictures of every page, slid the journal into my bag, and left before anyone could stop me. Outside, I called McClure. I found his notes, I said. He used us. He used my grief to keep her voice alive. Slow down. Where are you? At the school. Stay there. I'm coming. No, I said. If this is connected to me, I have to end it. I hung up before he could argue. My phone buzzed again. 3:06 a.m. came early that night. The screen glowed white with a new message. Do you see now? You kept her alive. I wanted to throw the phone, but I couldn't. My reflection stared back at me, pale and shaking. Maybe the sender was right. Maybe, without knowing, I had been the missing part of his experiment, the grief that refused to quiet. I opened the last page of the journal. It held one final note, written in darker ink. If subject answers call after subject death, feedback loop stabilizes. Full echo replication achieved. A line beneath it, smaller, control must not answer again. I shut the book. My chest burned. Every instinct screamed that another call would come, and if I answered, something permanent would happen. I stared at the phone on the table. The clock ticked closer to 3:07. And just as the minute changed, the phone began to ring. Lila calling. The phone rang in my hand. Lila calling. I hit record first. Then I answered. Mom. The voice was breathy and close. Please. Listen. I'm here, I said. Tell me where you are. A soft hiss filled the line. Water. Wind. Then her voice again. Ask him about the recordings. Which recordings? I asked. Whose? Silence stretched. A faint male whisper surfaced under the noise. 2 words, almost a hum. Hold still. My chest tightened. Lila, can you hear me? She tried again. It hurts. It's cold. The call fractured. A quick scrape like metal on metal. A car door opening. Then nothing. The log stamped the time at 3 hours 7 minutes and 13 seconds. My voice recorder kept running in my lap. I stared at the screen until the dark room felt like it was leaning. If you are watching, stay with me. Subscribe so you do not miss the next step. Tell me your city in the comments. What would you do if a lost child told you to look for recordings? I called McClure. He answered on the first ring. It came again, I said. I recorded the whole thing. Do not play it for anyone else, he said. Bring it now. I drove through quiet streets that looked washed. When I reached the station, he led me straight to a small lab with a single desk and a tired computer. He plugged in my phone and copied the file. His hands were steady. Mine were not. We listened with headphones. The first pass gave us her voice. The second pass gave us something new. He ran a filter across the low band. A second layer crept out of the noise. Male. Calm. Close to her mic. He stopped the audio and rewound. Here, he said. Listen between her words. We ran it again. Lila said, ask him about the recordings. Under it, barely there, a man breathed. Then a whisper, got it. My throat stung. That was him. McClure pressed his lips together. It matches the cadence from the house tape. The day she died. Likely the same voice, he said. He split the audio into 2 tracks. He highlighted one in blue, one in yellow. Your daughter sits in the main band. The man sits 5 hertz lower. See the steady line? That is not a panic voice. That is a person in control. He is managing levels. So he was taping her, I said. Not helping. McClure nodded once. He was close enough to place a mic. Or a recorder on his dash. Maybe both. I felt the air change in my chest. Like the room had lost oxygen. I wanted to be wrong. He removed the headphones and sat back. Clara, I need you to prepare for the full truth. It may not heal. It may not fix what hurts. But it will stop the guessing. Am I ready for that? I asked. I do not know. He looked down at the screen. You do not have to decide alone. But this recording changes the case. The overlap proves proximity. The low band keeps steady while the rest spikes. That means he kept calm while she broke. Anger rose like heat under my skin. He turned her last minutes into a test. We will prove it, he said. We played the file again from the start. On the third listen I heard a detail that I had missed. A faint tick every 2 seconds under the hum. Regular. Patient. What is that? I asked. He leaned in. A metronome. Why would anyone use a metronome at a crash? To mark time in the file, he said. So later he could align the waves cleanly. I pressed my palm to the desk. He planned the recording. He did not stumble into it. He built it. We sat in silence. The cursor blinked on the screen like an eye. If you are still here, write still in the comments. This part is hard. You are not alone. McClure copied the file to evidence and handed my phone back. No more answering at 3, he said. Let it ring. We will trace a live signal if it comes again. I cannot promise that, I said. But I will try. He hesitated. One more thing. Peterson kept notes about a time window. We can assume the loop is tied to that schedule. If the call is a loop, the source is nearby and constant. If it shifts, then someone live is nudging it. Either way, it follows rules. Rules of grief, I said. Rules of control, he said. I drove home slow. I set the phone on the table and watched daylight crawl across the floor. The words from the call wouldn't leave me. Ask him about the recordings. My mind tried to solve it like a puzzle. How many files did he make? Where did he hide them? What did he name them? Then a colder thought, who was he saving them for? At noon, McClure texted. We have a lead on a storage unit. Rented under a false name. In town. A second text followed. Do not go alone. I thumbed a reply. I will wait. For the rest of the day I sat in Lila's room with the blue notebook open. I read the goodbye letter I had hidden years ago. I read it out loud. I read until my voice steadied. When I finished, I closed the notebook and put it back in the box. That night, I silenced my phone and set it on the dresser face down. I watched the ceiling. The house breathed. The red dot on the smoke alarm blinked. 3 arrived like a tide. The phone lit. It rang. I did not touch it. It rang again. The glow painted the wall. I kept still. The ring ended. The room fell quiet. A soft sound rose in the hallway. Not a call. A voice. Near, not from any speaker. "Mom," it said. Gentle. "Ask him about the recordings." I turned my head toward the door. The hall was empty. The air moved like the house had sighed. I whispered into the quiet. "I am asking. I am coming." For the first time since the first call, I felt something other than fear. I felt ready to meet the source. If you are with me, subscribe now so you do not miss what we found when we opened that door. Tell me your city. And tell me in one word what you would have done next. We met at dawn outside a row of metal doors at the edge of town. The storage park sat beside a substation. Wires draped the sky. The air felt charged. McClure stood by Unit 217 with 2 officers and a locksmith. "This is the one," he said. "Rented under a fake name. Paid in cash." The rental started the year after the crash. The locksmith popped the cylinder and rolled the door up. Cold air spilled out. It smelled like metal and dust and something sweet, like old glue. Shelves lined both walls. Coils of wire. Old cassette decks. Weathered laptops. A bundle of cheap phones without SIMs. At the back, a folding table held a metronome. It ticked in slow time. I stared at that small wooden box. 2 seconds on. 2 seconds off. The same rhythm from the tape. The same rhythm under my daughter's last words. On the wall above the table, notes were pinned in neat rows. I stepped close. Each page held a title. Echo Capture Through Grief. Signal Window 3 to 315. Host Anchor, Maternal Line. Below the titles, small scripts marked tests. McClure lifted a plastic bin labeled Bridge Archive. Inside lay cassettes with dates written in careful block letters. Many had the same window written in pen, 3 to 315. He set one in a deck and pressed play. The hum of wind. The faint rush of water. Then the tick of the metronome. After that, a voice. Not Lila. Not me. The man. Calm. One word, begin. Stop, I said. Do not play it here. He clicked the button. The sound cut off. You are right, he said. We copy and seal. We listen in the lab. Another bin held printed maps. Small red stars dotted spots along the river and near the bridge. One map showed my street with a circle drawn around our cul-de-sac. Under the circle, he had written a single line, primary host. My knees went weak. McClure caught my elbow. Sit, he said. He pulled a folding chair from the corner and set it behind me. If you are watching this, I said into the room, not sure who I was speaking to, hear me. This is not research. This is theft. McClure took photos of each wall. He bagged the metronome and pulled its batteries first. He labeled cords, cards, and phones. The officers logged every item and marked time with a body camera. On a second table sat a cheap phone with a cracked screen. The back was missing. A small note lay beneath it. 307 test. UC's number. What is C? I asked, though I knew. McClure opened a laptop with an external drive attached. A Shield program popped up. He nodded to the officer. Let IT image this. No one touches the files until we can read them safely. I moved to the wall with the notes. A page held a diagram of a loop. A line labeled bridge mic. Another labeled substation relay. Another labeled host phone. Arrows ran between them in a circle. At the bottom, a simple instruction, trigger at 3:07 using anchor. What is the anchor? I asked. McClure met my eyes. Your number. I looked at the bin of cheap phones. He was spoofing her line with my contact as the key. Close, he said. He was spoofing the route with her retired number and your name in your phone. Your contact made the call look like it came from her. The route moved through short-range boxes. The substation kept noise low enough to hold the echo steady. Why 3 in the morning? Noise floor, he said. Less traffic. More stable signal. I stared at the map with the red stars. He built a cage. Not just a cage, McClure said. A habit. He needed you to keep answering. He needed you to hold the loop open. That is why the texts begged for secrecy. If you told anyone early, the loop could be traced and shut down. The officers pulled a final box from under the table. Inside lay a charred phone in a fireproof bag. The shape looked like a flip phone, melted but recognizable. My throat closed. It looks like hers. It is likely a clone, he said. The SIM is gone. The officer logged it and sealed the bag. I could not stop looking at the curve of the dead screen. I had seen that shape in my dreams for years. If you are still here, right here. We are almost through this room. We do it together. On the far wall, a corkboard held photographs with strings between them. The bridge on rainy nights. The school lab. My house at dawn. The same science fair photo with a circle around Lila and a note, clear source. Another circle around me at the funeral, enduring host. A thin folder sat on the table under the board. Inside were copies of my old social posts. A schedule of the shop hours. A printed calendar with anniversaries highlighted. He watched me, I said. He watched to schedule the loop, McClure said. Obsession lives on a clock. The locksmith stepped in with a roll of tape. You want this sealed after you leave? He asked. Yes, McClure said. Evidence seal only. No one in or out. We spent 3 more hours in the unit. Every item was photographed. Every file was marked. When the last box was logged, McClure shut off the light and pulled the door down. The lock clicked. The morning had brightened. Birds chattered near the fence. We drove to the substation next door. Along the rear fence, an officer pointed to a small plastic box wired into a post. Inside, a cheap handset lay attached to a memory card and a tangle of leads. The screen blinked with a single word, armed. They cut the feed and removed the card. A second box sat 20 feet away on another post. Same design. Same message. Armed. How many of these did he place? I asked. Enough to keep a path, McClure said. If one died, another took over. The loop did not need him every night. He set it to survive him. He looked tired when he turned to me. Clara, I need you to hear this part. This stopped being research a long time ago. He moved from theory to control. Control of you. Control of your nights. Control of your grief. He built a ritual out of pain. I know, I said. I felt it. Back at the lab, they loaded the memory card. A list of audio files appeared by date. Many had names that matched the cassette labels. A few had plain names. 1, 2, 3. The newest file was stamped 2 nights ago at 3 hours 7 minutes and 12 seconds. He clicked it. Silence. Then my voice. Then her voice. Then a click. Then nothing. Stop, I said. I do not want to hear more. He stopped the file. We do not have to play them. We just have to prove they exist, prove the route, and end the loop. How do we end it? By breaking the habit, he said. We pull the hardware. We kill the relays. We trace the last handset. We change your number. And you do not answer again. I looked down at my hands. He wrote a line in his journal. If the host answers after the subject dies, the loop stabilizes. Control must not answer again. Then we cut the last wire, he said. We deny the ritual the one thing it needs. You. I nodded. I can try. He studied my face. You can do more than try. We spent the rest of the day signing forms. When I left the station, the sky had softened. The street looked normal again. Kids on bikes rolled past the corner. A neighbor waved from a lawn. At home, I set the phone on the dresser and opened the window. Evening air moved through the room. I sat with the blue notebook in my lap. I read the letter a second time. My voice stayed steady. At 3:06, the house felt cooler. At 3:07, the phone lit. I kept my hands on my knees. It rang. It stopped. It rang again. It went quiet. In the quiet, a softer sound rose, like a breath near my ear. Mom, it said. Calm. Thank you. I did not cry. I sat very still and let the words settle where they belonged. Not on a loop. Not in a trap. In a memory that I own. If you are with me, subscribe so you do not miss what happened next. Morning slid in slow, thin, and gray. I thought the worst of it was over. We had the unit. We had the wires. We had proof that a man turned grief into a switch. I brewed coffee I did not drink and waited for a call from the lab. It came at 9:31. Come in, McClure said. Bring your phone. I want you here when we open the last device. At the station, he led me past desks into a small room that smelled like dust and warm plastic. On the table sat a cheap handset we had not powered yet. Next to it, a thumb drive. Next to that, a sheet with file names typed clean as a ledger. The last entry had today's date. McClure touched the sheet with a fingertip. This was set to push a final file tonight, he said. But the timer still lets us play it here. We can listen once, log it, and move it to evidence. I nodded. Do it. He glanced at the tech. Roll. The tech plugged the drive into a shielded laptop. A folder opened with a dozen files named in a pattern. The last one carried a time code and a single word. Final. He clicked. The speakers gave a soft hum, then the low tick I had learned to hate. 2 seconds on. 2 seconds off. Then wind. Then light rain. Then her voice. Mom. Not a call to me. A plea to no one. A raw edge I had never heard in any other clip. Please. Metal groaned. Rubber screamed against wet road. Something hit the rail hard enough to jolt the table even though the sound came from speakers. A door latch clicked. Another door stayed shut. Then a slow breath that did not belong to a scared child. Calm. Even. McClure froze the file. Listen to that inhale, he said. Count it. The tech rolled it again. The breath was steady. A mouth close to a mic. Not a man who had just seen a wreck. A man marking time. Why is he breathing like that? I asked. My voice sounded far away. To keep levels, the tech said. You do it when you want to stay under control. You do it when you want your hands to stay steady. The file moved forward. Lila's voice came thin now. A cough. A small cry. The kind you make when you do not want to scare yourself more than you already are. Then the man again. Not a word this time. A small click like a button. Then his whisper. Perfect. I reached for the table. My hand missed it. The room tilted hard and I went to my knees before I knew I was falling. The air moved like water. I heard someone say my name. I did not answer. All I saw was the sound. All I saw was a man so still he could breathe like that while a child begged. Hands helped me into a chair. Water found my palm. I set the cup down again. My fingers did not trust the shape of anything. Stop it, I said. Turn it off. McClure clicked the key. The room went quiet except for the tiny groan of a fan. I lifted my head. My eyes stung and I let them. I did not wipe them away. He followed her, I said. He had a phone. He had a recorder. He had a car. He had time. McClure sat across from me. He kept his voice low. He was there. He never called for help. He waited to finish a test. How long did he wait? The tech pointed to the screen. The file runs past the impact. It keeps going for 3 minutes. The metronome holds. That tells me he sat still to keep the field clean. I pressed both hands to my chest like I could keep it from breaking through skin. She might have lived, I said. He took those minutes. No one spoke. Anger came next. Not hot. Clean. It landed and stayed. It did not burn out. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to take the small phone in the bag and pull it apart piece by piece and keep going until the bag was dust. I did none of it. I sat with the anger until it settled where it could help. McClure reached for a form. We will certify this file. We will log the route. We will list every device that fed the loop. The route will stand in court. The file will stand. I wish I could say a different end is coming. You are telling me there will be no charge for the crash. He did not soften it. No. Then say the truth anyway. He met my eyes. He chose to record a child instead of helping her. He knew those minutes mattered. He turned a dying girl into data. That is the truth. I closed my eyes. I saw her as she was at 5 with grass in her hair. At 12 with paint on her palms. At 17 with that grin when she had a plan. I brought all three into the small room with the cheap phone and the metronome tick still living in my head. The tech cleared his throat. There's a last second here, he said. It is not voice. It is a tap. On the glass. Listen. He rolled it. Tick. Wind. The shallow breath that stayed steady. Then a faint thud. The tech pointed to the waveform. Not metal. Fingertips. On a side window. My heart climbed my throat. She reached out. McClure nodded once. She tried to be seen. I do not want him to have the last word. You do not have to let him. I stood. My legs steadied. I asked them to play those last 10 seconds again. I stood through them. When the file ended, I leaned toward the mic on the table and spoke to a room that would record me as cleanly as it recorded a man who had loved control more than life. You can rest now, baby, I said. I meant it with every part of me that had stayed awake for 15 years. The mic picked my voice up and saved it with a date and time. Another file to mark a window that had defined my nights. This one did not belong to him. If you are still with me, type with you in the comments. Subscribe so you hear how we closed the window he built. You are part of this. I see you. We moved to the hallway. McClure signed and countersigned. The tech sealed the drive. An officer walked the bag to evidence. The whole place felt like it had shifted 1 inch closer to ground. Outside, the sky had opened just a little. I stood on the steps and let damp air touch my face. A woman from records passed with a stack of files. Life went on around the edge of a breaking house. McClure joined me. I want you to know something before you hear it anywhere else, he said. The motel we tracked to him. He checked in 2 weeks ago. The manager found him 3 days later. Stroke. No ID. The coroner matched him to prints on our old file. I filed the notice this morning. So he is already dead. Yes. He never heard me say it then. McClure did not ask what. He knew. Say it at the bridge, he said. Say it at the house. Say it where you want. Let your voice live where you choose. I nodded. What happens to the gear? Pulled and destroyed when the case closes, he said. We keep a small sample in evidence. The rest ends. I want to be there when they end it. He thought a second. I can make that happen. I went home and sat on the floor of Lila's room with the window open and the blue notebook in my lap. Sun moved a little across the carpet. I slept for 1 hour and woke with tears dry on my face. Not the desperate kind. The kind that felt old and done. Before night, I drove to the bridge with flowers from the back cooler. I walked to the same post where wild onion grows and set the stems down. I did not speak right away. Cars passed. A bird shrieked and took off from the rail like it had been waiting for me to leave. He did not call for help, I said into the air. He will never have your name again. I am taking it back. I touched the rail. Cold. Flat. You can rest now. A breeze moved thin hair at my temple. I do not care if it was only air. It felt like a hand I had held 1,000 times. I left the flowers. I walked to the car. I did not look back. That night I placed my phone on the dresser and turned the sound off. I did not sit in the hallway or watch a red dot blink. I did not stare at the window like it might show me a shape. I lay down and waited for 3:07 like you wait for a train that does not run anymore. It still lit. Of course it did. The system did not know he was gone. It did not know I had spoken. It rang once. Twice. I let it go. The ring ended. The air in the room changed the way a room changes when someone stops pacing. Mom, a soft voice said. No phone. No speaker. Not loud enough to scare me. Thank you. I slept until the sun came in and touched my shoulder. Paper moves slow when the case is ugly. It still moved. 3 days after the last file, McClure called and said it was time. The order to dismantle the loop came through with a line at the top that read, Experimental Audio Network Interfering with Public Safety. It felt too mild. It would do. We met at the storage park at noon. The same row of doors. The same wire hum from the substation. This time there were more cars. Evidence techs. A supervisor. The locksmith. Everyone ready to pull a system that had lived on my nights. If you want to step aside, say so, McClure said. You do not have to watch. I do, I said. I want my eyes on the thing that took my sleep. They rolled up the door. The room looked smaller. Shelves felt ordinary now. The metronome sat in a bag with a tag. The table had empty rings where gear had stood. Techs moved with calm hands. They cut the last leads and read serials into a body cam. On the wall hung the corkboard. The circles around my face and Lila's had started to curl at the corners. I stepped closer. I did not pull them down. I wanted them to become part of dust, not my house. Ready for the substation, a tech said. We crossed the strip of grass between chain-link fences. A worker had already cut the power feed to 2 small boxes. The cheap handsets sat in clear bags like fish. An officer read dates into a mic and zipped the bags shut. What happens to the files? I asked. They are cloned for evidence, he said. Then we destroy the devices. The loop cannot boot again. A tech handed me a pair of earmuffs. This part is loud, she said, and then smiled like she wished she could offer a better kindness. She lowered a small shredder box from a van and plugged it into a generator. The first phone went in and became fragments. The second followed. The sound made the hair on my arms lift, but it did not hurt the way the tick had hurt. It sounded like an end. Last one is the metronome, the tech said. You want to do it? I nodded. She passed me the bag. I pulled the wooden box out and held it. It looked like any thrift store thing. It had kept nights in shape anyway. I set it on the shredder slot. My hand hovered. I said a line I had not planned. You do not own my hours, I said to the small box. Then I pushed it in. Wood and spring and gear became nothing. The room did not change color. The sky did not open wide. A bird still called from the fence. It was enough. At the station, the supervisor signed a destruction log. I signed a witness line. McClure initialed 10 places. When the pen left the last spot, I let my breath out slow. He drove me home. We sat in the car in front of my house for a minute. He looked at the porch light I always left on. "It should be quiet now," he said. "There may be echoes for a while. That is normal. Your mind will keep the pattern until it learns it can let it go." "What if a call still comes?" I asked. "You decide what to do with it," he said. "Not the machine." I nodded. He waited until I was at the door before he drove away. Inside, I made tea and did not drink it. I pulled the blue notebook and the keepsake box from the closet. I took the paper crane and set it on the windowsill where sun could hit it. I slid the silver charm into a small dish. I folded the jacket across the chair so it would not pull at the shoulders. Then I walked the house and turned on every light. Not out of fear. Out of habit. I wanted to rewrite. Bright rooms. Open doors. No corners for old tricks to sit in. The days that followed were not dramatic. They were simple in a way that felt brave. I went to the shop and stocked stems and smiled at a couple buying a bouquet for a new baby. I took the beagle down the block and let him sniff the same post 3 times. I stood in line at the bank and did not watch the clock out of the corner of my eye. I slept before midnight and woke before the alarm. That third night after the shredder, at 2:50, I woke and stared at the ceiling. Habit. I listened. The house was a house. The fridge hummed. The heater clicked. A car rolled past the corner. No hum under the hum. No tick under the breath. No small life inside the wires that did not belong there. I fell back asleep. I woke again at 3:06. My body had built a switch I could not find to turn off yet. I rolled to my side and watched the phone on the dresser. At 3:07, it rang. Of course it did. Timers are timers. Some box in the network had not been found. Or a file on the motel device still had orders to keep going until it ran out of dates. Or this was the last drip out of a system that had been fed for years. Lila calling. I did not move. I let the screen fill the room with soft light. I let it ring through. 1, 2, 3, 4. It stopped. If you are still here, type here. Do not go. This is the part people ask about when they meet me at the shop. What did you feel? What did you do next? Did you answer? I sat up. I placed both feet on the floor. I did not pick up the phone. I took the blue notebook from the drawer and set it in my lap. I put one hand on it. I put the other on the dish with the charm. I waited. A soft voice rose. Not from the handset. From the hallway. Not loud. Not a trick. A small thing I could have missed if I were not listening with all the parts of me that had learned to listen a certain way. Mom, it said. Thank you. I did not speak. I let the thanks land. I let it be the last word. Not his. Hers. Mine. The room held still. The air felt plain again. Nothing pressed. No weight on my chest that did not belong to my own ribs. I rested my head on the pillow and slept. Morning came like a normal guest. Light through the blind. A bird on a wire. The mail truck on the next street. I made coffee and drank it. I ate toast not over the sink but at the table. I wrote a list with normal things. Order ribbon. Call the plumber. Return Mrs. Patel's tray. I added one more line. Visit Bridge at dusk. Before I left for the shop, McClure called. I have final news. The coroner signed off. Peterson died the week before the first call. Stroke. The manager guessed 3 days. The devices were on timers. The system did not know he was gone. So the calls at the end were from a dead man's hand. The calls were from a dead man's system, he said. The voice that spoke last night was yours to keep. Thank you, I said. For being steady. I am returning the journal when the record closes, he said. Do you want it in a sealed envelope or should I keep it in archive? Archive, I said. I do not want his words in my house. He understood. We hung up. At dusk, I drove to the bridge with lilies. The new rail caught last light. People drove home and did not think about the night 15 years back. I placed the flowers at the base of the post and stood until my hands stopped shaking. I will not answer the past out of fear anymore, I said. I will answer it out of love when I choose. Not because a machine asks me to and not because a man taught it when to call. I turned to leave. In the weeds, a thin metal strip caught light. I knelt and lifted it. A plate from a recorder. The letters on it had been scratched with a small blade. I could read 3 words even with the dirt. Let me go. I set the plate back. I did not take it with me. The river can keep that part. I want my house to keep only what belongs to us. On the drive home, the town looked the way it does when people are eating dinner and kids are brushing teeth and someone is sitting with a book and a lamp. I parked. I stood on my porch and listened to the quiet. I went inside and turned off the extra lights. I did not need them anymore. For the first time in 15 years, the window closed. The next morning rose clear and quiet. No static in the air, no hum under the walls, no weight pressing behind the clock. I stood by the window with a mug of coffee that actually tasted like coffee, not ash, not memory, just warm and real. For the first time in 15 years, silence didn't feel like an enemy. I locked the shop early that afternoon and drove toward the rebuilt bridge. The same stretch of road that once stole everything from me now looked harmless, clean lines, new rail, bright signs that warned what no one could ever really prevent. The clouds had softened. The air carried that early spring smell, wet soil, and faint lilac. When I parked and stepped out, I noticed how the world had kept moving without me. The river had healed its banks. Grass had grown through the cracks of the old shoulder. The hum of cars passing overhead was steady, normal. I walked to the same post I had stood by before, the one with the little patch of wild onion, and laid a bundle of lilies down. If you're listening now, take a breath with me. Tell me your city in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from, because stories like this reach further than we think. As I knelt, something silver caught the light between stones. I brushed the dirt aside and found it, a small metal plate, scratched and faded, with 3 words etched into it. Let me go. I turned it over in my hand. The edges were rough, sharp where someone had carved fast. I didn't know if it was part of the old railing or something Peterson had dropped during his twisted experiments. It didn't matter. The message was clear enough. I placed it back where I found it. It belonged to the ground now. I looked at the water below, dark, slow, steady, and spoke quietly. I will not follow ghosts. I will carry you in daylight. The wind pushed my words out over the river. For the first time, I didn't need an answer. I stayed there a while, listening to the traffic, the birds, the life that didn't care about memory or loss or science. Just living. I thought about the nights when the phone ruled me, when I waited for something that could never return the way it was. And now, the phone was just an object again, not a shrine, not a haunting. Just a tool I could turn off. On the drive home, the sky opened enough for sunlight to slip through. Maple Ridge looked ordinary, beautiful in its ordinariness, kids racing bikes, someone mowing a lawn, a woman waving from her porch with a mug in her hand. Life had gone on, and somehow, I had caught up to it. That night, I didn't turn on any extra lights. I didn't need to guard the dark anymore. I sat at my kitchen table and made a list: buy soil for the flower beds, call Mark about signing the final paperwork, maybe repaint the guest room. Small things. But small things build a future. I opened my blue notebook one last time. Inside the back cover, I wrote, "Grief is not the ghost. It's the tether." And the courage to release it is what brings peace. I closed it, placed it on the shelf beside a vase of fresh lilies, and left it there, not to be hidden, but to be found someday by someone who might need to know that pain doesn't always mean punishment. Later, as night settled, I made myself tea and stood by the window again. The reflection staring back wasn't a broken woman clinging to the past. It was just me, older, yes, but lighter. Whole. When the clock reached 3:07, the house stayed still. No ring. No hum. Just silence. But this silence was different. It was gentle, clean. A silence that didn't demand anything from me. If you've watched until now, thank you for staying through every call, every shiver, every truth. What remains in the morning is not fear. It's the proof that you can survive what tried to claim you. To anyone out there holding on to pain, hear this: when it calls again, in your thoughts, in your memories, in your guilt, you don't always have to answer. Sometimes, silence is how love finally rests. And if you felt something in this story, if you've ever stood at your own version of that bridge, comment your thought and subscribe. Stay with us at Voices of Sephora. Every story we tell here holds a piece of truth that reminds us healing doesn't happen in one night. It happens in mornings like this. Sometimes, silence is how love finally rests.